when we're talking about justice, when we're talking about equality, when we're talking about dignity for all people, irrespective of where you're born, irrespective of the ethnicity you're part of, what family lineage you're part of, every time we talk about that, we have to integrate it within our understanding of the failures of capitalism. Because the moment we start seeing capital, the exchange of money, and how people with capital are able to somehow rule the roost when it comes to controlling how resources are, how are distributed, how land is controlled, how land is owned, how resources are owned by people with biggest biggest amount of capital in their banks. When you realize that domination of the planet, domination of the resources, is what leads downstream to that, to colonialism, to the ethnic cleansing of Palestine. When how capitalism and in integration with ethno supremacy led to things like the Third Reich, when it led to things like Zionism, because of course let's not forget that when Hitler was having an issue with consensus of the industry great the industry titans, the big business community, he held a secret meeting with the biggest magnates of society, 30 biggest leaders, and he promised them that he would demolish democracy, and these capitalists would have greater control, because of course he would smash the work unions, and he would you know work in synergy with capitalists. If when you realize that capitalism in of itself, without any understanding of or kind of like the greater picture and context in which capitalism arises, um, if you do not realize that capitalism um, is antithetical to democracy, because when capital is seen as the primary aim by these industry titans, then obviously democracy, it gets in a way. Let's talk about how unions, people within the workforce, they collaborate and work together towards increased wages. This is obviously in contradiction, in it is oppositional to the capitalists who want to increase their profits and therefore decrease wages. This is a small example, but this is a microcosm of how capital, with one person at the top controlling resources, leads to just an army-like structure whereby they can dominate and control a land over people who are powerless, but they are greater numbers. You know, we can see the failures of capitalism when it's not controlled by the people. The only way you can actually, have a truly free market society, and I mean not free market in the capitalistic sense, but a free market in terms of a society where everyone has opportunity, is if people have are and the value of people and the lives of people are above the economy. The economy should be secondary. The economy should work towards benefiting humankind, rather than we've got three stories that I'm going to discuss in this video, but I'll explore more in future videos. You have Elon Musk, this crypto billionaire, now trillionaire, obviously showing signs of Nazi like ideology when he's giving the Heil Hitler salute in his previous rallies. Of course, this is a person who should not be at the helm, should not be in command of any great enterprise when it comes to influencing government. This is a person who wants to be in power, but does not have the capabilities, does not have the bandwidth, intellectual capacity, the good judgment that is required of a great leader. This is obviously a person who, whenever he wades into politics, he when he's in support of a candidate in an election, that candidate often loses. We've seen with previous primaries. Obviously, he has supported Donald Trump, but obviously Donald Trump already had his momentum. He was obviously winning against Biden, who was and Biden and Kamala, both who are decrepit, without any moral clarity, without any firm stance on Palestine, for example. And a lot of people, a lot of analysts would say that if they had a stronger stance on Palestine, they would more likely to have won. But anyway, that goes without saying that that people with capital, simply by having capital, doesn't mean that they're good and have a good firm judgment. It should be common sense. Toddlers should understand this. I assume most toddlers do understand this, but in our world, currently society, if you have capital, you have control, you have power. And capital doesn't actually make you, realize anything that is ethical or meaningful. In fact, people who pursue capital for the sake of capital are often the power hungry, immoral, degenerative types. Look at Gwyneth Paltrow. This is somebody who's doing ads for Israel, for apartment complexes in Israel, despite already having the riches in the world and being paid, let's say, 10 million for this advertisement. Why would she, be a, dancing, circus freak? Why would she, be at the beck and call of this Zionist state, this racist, ethno-supremacist state? Because of course, these people do not think of humans as equals. These people think of society as might makes right. These people think of business dealings, of do whatever, climbing up whatever rung to in order to achieve their own success, greater success. And for them, that means making more money, and even spitting in the face of any kind of understanding or any kind of more humanistic or humanitarian understanding of the world. What's happening right now is that humanitarianism is seen as kind of like the public enemy of the establishment. It's public enemy of capital. It's public enemy of any kind of moral clarity. A public enemy of humanitarianism, of equality of humans. You know, we talk about Elon Musk, Gwyneth Paltrow, and of course Ivanka Trump. It shouldn't really be surprised. At the same time, when I watched Ivanka Trump talking about this new enterprise of kind of encountering this island, this uninhabited island, and simply purchasing it and developing it off, I think it was in Albania. It I it led me, it kind of, it it made me think how disgusting these people are. It's actually more evil than it seems, because these people believe that they have the audacity to think that their projects, their little small-minded schemes and plans are important, and more important than, let's say, the wildlife of this land. It's more important than the will of the people of which the land belongs to. It's more important than being harmonious with nature. And these people have a certain mindset and they believe that they are themselves doing something good. Of course, ultimately they're all in it for themselves. Every single one of these, Zionists, from Zionists to Elon Musk to Gwyneth Paltrow to Ivanka Trump, they're all in it for themselves. And we need to understand that a true leader in society has to think about the whole picture, the holistic understanding of human society. And I think right now what we are seeing, with the genocide, that there is an opportunity for kind of an alternative vision of society. Perhaps right now there's an undercurrent within human civilization of people who believe in a greater picture of equality, of justice for all people. But it won't, this justice won't happen in this current state of affairs with the establishment tied to money, tied to power, and people with money and wanting to have more greater control. This means controlling our free speech. This means having greater influence over politics and trying to shut out. We've seen with Hassan Piker and Cenk Uygur not being allowed in the UK for simply criticising a country that is not the UK. This is the state of affairs. It's a complete un-British to want to completely disregard the viewpoints of other people when that this fear is unwarranted. Because if you care about democracy, then all people should be have to contribute to the conversation, and whatever is popular should be the one, the ideas that are ruling at the end of the day. But these people fear that this may be too popular for the establishment, and this is in a way the slippery slope to authoritarianism. It's already here, but they themselves believe that they are on the right. They believe in justice. They think that they are on the right. They think that they are on the good, but actually they're defending a genocidal regime. They're defending what's immoral, and even if they, even irrespective of that, they want to control the dialogue. They want to control any criticism of the state. Even if the criticism are unwarranted, they want to control the ability to talk about it. And yet, if they actually, believed that it was unjust, or the criticism against the state are unjust, then at least let them say their word, and you have a right to, you have the space, therefore, to to counter their points. But they're not interested in that. They're interested in authoritarianism. They're interested in fascistic way of thinking about the world. They're interested in maintaining an establishment where you have Elon Musk, the Gwyneth Paltrows, these Dave Rubins, the most dumbest people on this planet, who are incidentally still rich because they are in support of the establishment. This is, Ivanka Trump talking, with sparkle in their eyes, talk about how their schemes and their plans and the development and the architecture is so important. It's all nonsense. It's all just the audacity of psychopaths. Anyways, more on this in the future. Hope you like this video. Please like, comment, and subscribe. That'd be very much appreciated. Thank you.